a feast or a famine since its inception, depending on the colour of your jersey. Cavalry Red has ruled the roost. Guitar turning, shooting, what a goal! Oh my word! Keppel strokes it in confidently. Fine penalty from the youngster.
Sets up pretty well for Daniel, still with some work to do. Second touch through the legs of Irving, and it's a second for Halifax.
In the box, comes across, Ricci, and he scores for Valour.
Santos, stopped by Oxner. Great reaction from the Wanderers keeper.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Newsroom. Christian Jack alongside Charlie O'Connor-Clark. That was the weekend that was in the Canadian Premier League, and on this week's show we'll break down all three CPL games as club records were broken again across the land, and talk, of course, Canada Soccer. The women's team were frustrated versus Korea Republic at BMO Field in Toronto. We'll get into that later in the show. And the under-20s were knocked out by Guatemala in a heartbreak of a penalty shootout. We'll get into that a little bit as well. We know that we like to break down heartbreak penalty shootouts on this show, and we'll just carry on doing that.
Oh, no.
Charlie, how are you, my man? We were together in Vancouver in midweek. Good to see you again. Things are good?
Yeah, good to see you. It's good to be back on the show after another just amazing weekend. Yeah,
lots of storylines. We're going to get into it. Lots of highs and some significant lows, particularly out west. We'll get to that in a second. Results this past weekend: Pacific 0, Halifax Wanderers 3. Maura Sam, Aiden Daniels, and Sam Salter with the goals. York United 1, Valour FC 3. Alessandro Ricci equalized by Azazi Di Rosario, and then goals from Moses Dyer and Sean Rea won it for the Winnipeg side. And then in Calgary, Cavalry 3, FC Edmonton 1. Arabin Pebble with 2, and Niall Higgins' own goal, and Gabby Bitar on the return for FC Edmonton. I think 15 games in all competitions now that Cavalry are unbeaten against FC Edmonton. Maybe that number wrong by 1, but who's counting? Yes, that's me. Well, before we get to Benedict and we talk about the loss out west, I guess it took 3 goals for all 3 teams to win this weekend, and some fantastic goals as well. Great to see some attacking football out there, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every game had plenty of chances either way, and just a lot of goals. It was a good weekend for talent, a good weekend for most clubs' pride raiser campaigns, which is always good.
Always good.
It's these were I think there were a couple weeks there in June where it was getting a little bit more sluggish in some of these games. We had some 0-0s, some 1-0s, but this weekend kind of exploded again, and clubs are starting to get back to attacking form. At least some clubs are. Some are very much not. And we're going to have to talk about that.
You're right. I think coming into this weekend now, after these games, the goals per game average has gone above 2.5 goals per game, which is always a pretty good standard for attacking football. So that's really good. I know Finn's in the chat, and he wants us to make him feel better because he's a Pacific fan. I don't think we're going to be feeling good over the next probably 10 or 15 minutes. So if you want us to chat about your team, we're going to do that. If you don't want to hear it, you might want to go put the kettle on and come back in about 15 minutes. By the way, later in the show, we will be joined by Phil DeSantos live, the Valour coach, just coming off the training pitch this morning in Toronto ahead of a game on Wednesday in Hamilton, where they'll play Forge, coming off a victory on Sunday against York. So we'll get to Phil and lots of things. Looking forward to him as well. But we start our guest with the All-Star himself. Bring on Benedict Rhodes. Who was in Toronto today, this weekend as well, also breaking down the Canadian women's national team game. We'll get Benedict on the show later for that. But we have to start, Benedict, with your first assignment of the weekend that came on the island. I was there. We'll get to this game in a second. But let's roll the highlights as Pacific lose at home by 3 goals for the first time ever, and Halifax Wanderers win a game by 3 goals for the first time ever. Club records broken galore, and quite frankly, it was an overwhelming victory by Halifax.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Halifax, coming off a 3-0 loss themselves, they needed a reaction. They needed to come back and bounce back in a big way, and that's exactly what they did. It takes a lot to beat the defending champions 3-0 in any sport, in any league, of course, but obviously Pacific in a bit of a dry spell at the moment. It kind of presented a perfect opportunity for one of these teams to bounce back, and it was Halifax in the end who did that.
Yeah, they certainly did bounce back in that. I mean, this shouldn't be lost on us, Charlie, how well Halifax played. I want to just say that first because Pacific obviously are the story here. They're the headline makers. We're going to get all into that as well. But the way Halifax played right from the whistle was really important. They were in my hotel. They arrived very, very late. They had delay. They arrived at 2:00 in the morning, Friday morning ahead of this game. And they did not play that way. They played like they had to go out there with a mission. And every credit that this was a performance they deserved to get a three goal win, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a massive, massive moment for them in the season because they had they had some bad moments in a few weeks prior, getting beaten so badly by Forge twice in the last few weeks at home. Halifax have not historically been a team that have been able to go on the road and smash somebody. I think they've played about 31, 32 games away from home in a CPL in history. They've scored 2 goals 8 times.
Yeah.
And this is the first time they scored 3, I believe, at least in CPL play, because they did it in Vaughan, I think. But this is a shocking result, I think, in most senses. Last week on the show, we kind of talked about Pacific coming home and maybe this is the moment that they kind of right the ship and find their footing and maybe batter a team that's at also a similarly down point. But not at all. That's not at all the case. And I think that this is just such a crucial moment for Halifax that, really when we look back at this in a couple of weeks or months, this could end up being a turning point for them in their season.
Yeah, they're staying in games and they're staying in the standings and they're not letting big results against them affect them. They bounce back well, right? They bounced back after losing at home to Forge 4-0 by playing great against Toronto FC in the Can Champ. They bounced back after Benedict said losing the 3-0 game against Forge to come back and win this one. Back on the island, here's a reaction of Halifax head coach Stephen Hart.
I think we started well. And when you start well like that, we had 2 early chances, which they defended well, they blocked, they did, and then we scored. And that kind of gave us the confidence to keep doing what we were doing. And then Aiden Daniels took his goal really, really well. And once you go 2-0 up, it was important for us to manage how we play and manage the ball because of the heat and, of course, our travel. So, and in the second half, we kind of were a little sluggish. Of course, we knew they had to come forward, take some risk, and we got the penalty. And it was just a matter of managing out the game after that.
Benedict, you were very complimentary about Daniels in your analysis as well, giving him obviously player of the match. Stephen Hart obviously singled him out there. Without Morelli, it is a team of efficient runners, a team who work really hard for the cause, but sometimes you need that difference maker. And it was Daniels again in this one, Benedict.
Yeah, it was. We saw some flashes of what he can do at the beginning of the season. Then he missed a couple of games, unfortunately, with an injury. And then now he's back. He seems to be, slowly but surely, getting back up to that higher gear. And, so on that play against for his goal, out muscling Aimer did, which is no easy task. And he did that, kind of turned him inside out and beat Irving with his left foot. So, Halifax need the players, I guess, to start stepping up. They're missing, of course, John Morelli. They're missing that sort of superstar, I guess, to kind of make everything click. And it looks like Aiden Daniels might start becoming that player and start being the one who can link the lines and start making goals.
Starting to become a real young superstar in our league. Here is Aiden Daniels after this one.
All week we talked about getting a reaction out of everyone. And just putting energy every single day into training, and it showed this weekend. So, we just need to keep building on this, and take care of Ottawa on Thursday at home.
We'll certainly get into a very busy midweek schedule as we get closer to the Canada Day schedule coming up later in the show. We've got to get into Pacific. This is the number one story right now in the Canadian Premier League, the champions. They know they made changes in the offseason, including in the coach, including losing some big players as well. But we talked about it. They lost 3 goals at home for the first time ever, a club record loss. They haven't scored in 3 games in a row. That's the first time they've done that. They're winless in 6. That ties a CPL club record as well. And last week we talked about how little touches they had in the opposition's box. They averaged less than 15. They got 21 in this game, but they only had 5 in the first half. Excuse me. And most of those came in a little bit of a bit of a thing right at the end of the half as well. We're going to get into what we think is the issue in a second. But before we do that, let's go back to the island. Here's the reaction of their head coach, James Merriman.
Yeah, I don't understand the performance. There's no excuse for the way we played. We're home. We're in front of our home crowd. In our stadium. The fans have been excellent. The fans were excellent again today. They were with us from start to finish, even though our performance, I don't know the preparation during the week, the way that we trained, the way that the group trained, was very, very good all week. So I don't understand, the performance. I don't know what to say, or there's nothing clear. I mean, if the energy wasn't there and the preparation wasn't there, I would feel different, but there was no reason for the way that we started the game, the way that we performed. The group has been excellent. Their energy, the way that they've been putting in work and training, and their preparation coming into the match, we felt good, we feel strong, we felt confident, and then the performance. So I'm not sure. We need to look at it again. I don't know why.
So James is perplexed. Let's break it down and see if we can find answers. Benedict, let's start with you. You did the game. What is the issues with Pacific in your mind? What's going wrong?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of urgency at times. I think they come out of the game, out of the gates, really flat. They just don't seem to start the game with the energy that they need to if they want to win games. And we saw that with Halifax almost scoring. I think it was like 1 minute into the game, Sam Salter almost put on a plate for more Sam. So they just look flat. They don't look maybe like they. I don't want to say they don't care, because I know that's not true, but it's just I think other teams maybe want it more than they have so far the last few weeks.
Interesting, Charlie.
Yeah, it's very strange because you see James Merriman there just kind of despondent and looking for answers, and when things start going like this for a club, especially a club that's been so high, especially to start the season, then it is very difficult to prevent that from spiraling, to find it back. It's very strange. Obviously, there's trouble in midfield, I think, for this team, especially going up against Rampersad and Gagnon Lapare in this game. We can't continue to use the excuse of Manny Aparicio not being there, because at the end of the day, especially in this league, you cannot live or die by one player. And we've seen pretty much every club have to deal with something like that. Obviously, it's a factor, but at the end of the day, I think this Halifax game, there were a lot of just kind of individual errors that are maybe uncharacteristic of this team. Thomas Meyer-Jaguar with a bad clearance before the first goal, and then the actual shot itself, Callum Irving probably wants that one back as well. This isn't a team that has made a lot of individual errors in their good moments, right? And especially those defenders have usually been some of the more stable and reliable ones in the league. So I think this team just absolutely needs to have that kind of turnaround game where just suddenly things start to go right. Sometimes you just need a couple bounces to go your way, and all of a sudden the confidence is back, the momentum is back, the form is back. But on Thursday, they have to host Cavalry, and that's always a tough one. You can't call a game against a team in such hot form a must-win game, but it's a must-show-up game for me, that Cavalry game. Pacific cannot afford to go into that game and also get dominated or get beaten badly on home turf again.
Right, yeah. I'm really concerned about this team. I saw it in person, and I know what James is saying because I was at training on the day before, and the spirit's there. They're all in good form. They're all in good spirits going into the game. They lost the game because of individual mistakes. So when you lose a game with individual mistakes, to Charlie's point, I think sometimes you say, okay, that's not going to happen again. But the offensive woes continue. They cannot generate enough attacks to win football matches, right? That's the issue. And midfield is a concern, right? The other major concern for me is depth. And they do not have anywhere near as much depth that you need to have in this league to win the CPL for me right now. And there's two ways they're going to have to correct that. One, the depth players are just going to have to get better and become more reliable. Or two, they're going to have to make changes fast. Because right now, the players that they're relying on to come into the game are not performing. And they're not performing at the level that they need them to perform in. Right now, I know the injuries have caught up to them. Aparicio will make the massive difference because he will stretch teams and make those runs out of midfield. But aside from Aparicio and potentially Young, who I felt bad for giving away the penalty because he has got a lot of promise going forward, out of other players who are not playing in the starting 11, who are we looking at in that team going, yeah, they're going to make a massive difference? Maybe Cam Habibullah when he comes back and he's got more confidence. They need they need pace. They need players who can stretch opposition's lines and run in behind. And they don't have enough of those players right now. And I'm concerned. I'm just concerned from fullback and midfield that they don't have the depth that they need. Ajabapor suddenly looks like an enormous loss as a driver from midfield. So it's concerning. There's no doubt about it. It's concerning. Look, I know it's early and they look like a playoff team for the majority of the season, but if they don't get their act together pretty quickly, particularly the team that beat them, are looking to replace them in that position, right?
Yeah, so just look at the standings.
Look at the standings. You know, this was a team that we're talking about won 3 out of 3, right? They won 3 out of 3 from the start, 9 points, right? Now they've got 10 points, right? 10 points from their last 10 games, I think, or 9 games. So
and everybody chasing them has games in hand as well.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, it's concerning, guys. No doubt about it. Benedict, do you think the team can bounce back Cavalry midweek? It's kind of one of those where I know James told the team after the game, Merrin told them back to work right away the next day and focus, and Cavalry come in red hot. I suppose it's a good thing that they're playing a team that's geared up for it. That will certainly add more to the motivation.
Yeah, I think so. Like Charlie said, I think it's a game they have to show up for, right? Like they can't take this one lightly. They can't come into this game thinking, like this is 2 teams at the top of the table playing each other. It has to be, this is the team we have to beat in order to get back up to that high level. And Cavalry will be one of the teams up at the top of the table come the end of the season. And if Pacific want to get to the final again and repeat the champions, they're gonna have to beat teams like Cavalry and have to get positive results against every team, but especially the best teams. And that game provides a good opportunity to do that and sort of get back on track.
Certainly does. Good stuff, Bennett. You can read his analysis at CanPL.ca. We'll chat with you in probably about half an hour or so. We'll get you back on to talk about the Canadian women's national team that I know you were at BMO Field for. So stick around. We'll get Bennett back in a second. It was also a special day for the Polisi family on Saturday. Going in, it was probably only going to be one winner in that. Even if you get a draw, you're never really happy if you draw at home. So Matteo and Marcelo Polisi both played together in midfield against each other, and I had the chance to catch up with them at Starlight Stadium on Saturday. Joined on the pitch by the Polisi brothers. It was always going to be this day. One of them was going to come out more happy than the other one. Matteo, tough loss. How does that look back on that one? It was a difficult one for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at home playing in front of our fans, not the result we wanted against Halifax, and we haven't won a game in a while. It's been a tough stretch, so I mean, we just got to get back to work and we've got to bounce back.
What was it like playing against your brother? When was the last time you guys played together as opponents?
Last time was U18 Portland against Whitecaps, so it's been a while.
Right.
Yeah.
What was it like? I saw out there at one point he did a little dummy and got past you. I thought that was something he's going to remember for some time. Is that you remember that one? No, he doesn't remember that. I bet you remember that one.
I'll remember that one.
Yeah,
I'll
remember that one. What was this like for you guys? Obviously bouncing back, difficult game against Forge.
Yeah.
You needed this.
Really, really tough game against Forge, but we bounced back. We worked hard. We put in the work in training last week, and we came here and we knew what we had to do. Tough day to play with the heat and everything, with the travel, but we got the job done and we're happy with the 3 points.
You know what? Let's pick up on that because not many people talk about this, and it's not an excuse. But now you've won, I can mention it. You guys were delayed. You had a plane cancellation. You were delayed 5 hours in Calgary. You came into a hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning, and less than 36 hours later, you come out and put a club record win on like that. What does that say about the character of this team?
Yeah, we have great character. We got big players with great leaders. We're with Rampy and Peter there. But it doesn't matter. You can't make those excuses. You have to come out. This is our job. And our job is to win games, and we need to start doing that more consistently.
What was it like after the Forge game? I know what that's like. I know how much you want to win. What was the burning desire to get out here and play? What was that like?
Devastating. It was devastating. But the next day, we trained, and everyone came in firing. The session was intense. It was good. And there was a buzz about the change. Even though we lost, there was still a buzz there. And we knew we had to do something and make a statement game like we did today.
Last one for you. It was a statement. I mean, you can win football games all the time and not always play well. Mm-hmm. But this was almost a perfect performance, no? You played so well out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a club record win there.
Yeah.
That says it all. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's only 3 points, and we have to do this consistently, week in, week out.
What about this for your family? Tell us a little bit about your parents. What were they thinking today, and what was this all like to build up to play against your brother?
Yeah, it's pretty special. I don't get to play against my brother every week. I mean, we played against each other last year, our teams, but we never were really on the pitch at the same time. Today we were both able to start and play 90. We were right up against each other, so I mean, it's special, a special moment, really.
I love it, and I can't thank you both enough for joining us. This is a special Canadian Premier League moment for a fan like this. I guess the final one for us from you is, what was the message from James Merriman there in the huddle? It's a difficult one. What was the message there to move on as the champs and move on to the next game?
Yeah, coming to work tomorrow, and we need to be better. We need to start games better. I mean, the goals that we conceded were just too easy from us all together collectively. We need to be together, and we need to start getting wins. And we're in a tough spell, but we need to dig ourselves out of it.
No doubt you'll bounce back, and again, congratulations
Thank you.
on 3 points. Marcelo, Matteo Polisi, congratulations to these guys. They're both going to swap shirts now, I think. And swap shirts they did, and they got photographs of them as well. So congratulations to the Polisi family. Really special Canadian soccer story. Let's bring in Mitchell Tierney, who was at York Lions Stadium on Sunday for us, as York United did not bounce back from a difficult week to Vancouver in the CanChamp semi-final loss, and played at Valour and went behind pretty quickly and lost 3-1 in this one. Mitchell, let's roll the highlights and your overall summary of this one as Valour get their 3rd win of the season.
Yeah, I think it was a massive game for both teams, and neither coach hid that because, well, they both really needed a win. And for Valour, I mean, that's a massive victory. Obviously, they hadn't won in 5 matches, so it's big to pick up a win. But as you'll see here, another factor, they've been very bad at, conceding goals quickly after scoring themselves. And they did that again in this game, which I'm sure they won't be happy about overall. But the fact that they were able to then very quickly get back on the front foot again on the road and score one themselves was huge. And also this comes at the start of a stretch of 5 matches where they're playing 4 of those in Ontario. And we've seen some very good sides, Pacific, Cavalry, both come into the Ontario road trips and really struggle. So, the fact that they're able to already get 3 points, already get 3 goals was huge for this club.
Yeah, absolutely. Valour needed a bounce back game, right? Especially after they play that game against Cavalry. They get, pretty much torn apart on set pieces a few times in that game. So for them to come in this time and not only be very dangerous from set pieces of their own, but put together a result like that, I think is a massive one, because again, they were maybe a little bit in danger of falling out of that pack if they'd let a few more results kind of slip away. So this is kind of a really important moment for them to just stay in the fight.
Yeah, and that was a big thing that Phil Dos Santos said after or before the match was, at this point in the season, when there's gaps, a single point on the season isn't good enough anymore. You need to fight for those 3 points. And again, there was a situation there where it looked like they might get a tie on the road, but they're able to go out and grab all 3. And it was a return to what Valour do best in terms of their quick counterattacking, the explosive combinations between their front 4. And for the first time, I think, since the Ottawa away match, like, this was ruthless Valour again. They kept creating chances. They kept going at York even after getting that 2-1 lead as things opened up. So I think it was, again, a big performance from them.
What of York, Mitchell? I mean, we're going to get Martin Nash on in a second. We'll hear from him, but they're operating on fumes, are they not? No, I mean, Absi's gone. Nico got hurt. Nico Gensopoulos apparently got hurt in the game. You've covered that in the analysis. No Gutierrez, no Petrasso, no Thompson, no Minitel, Wallace, Ricci, Wrights with the under-20s, 2 Saints suspended. That's 10 players right there. I mean, no team could kind of go through that, let alone this team. Is that simple to say they're just operating that way, or was there anything else you could pick out from the performance that lacked the quality that needed?
I think obviously that's a big part of it, and that leads into the deficiencies that you saw later on in the game in terms of, once Valour get that second goal and it really opens up a lot of the good things they were doing in terms of tracking back and that sort of thing all of a sudden go out the window. I thought in terms of, you see that late goal from Brett Levis, he was not pocketed the whole game, but he had a difficult time getting forward just because Max Ferrari was doing such a good job on that far side of leading him forward. And then late on, Ferrari kind of gasses out, and all of a sudden Levi is able to get down that flank, and you see that third goal happen. So I think that's a big part of it. And again, there's very few bench options for them. And one thing Nash spoke about is the fact that, sure, they have all these young guys that they've called up from League One Ontario, but he met most of those guys this morning, and it's really hard to put them in when, sure, they're fresh legs, but they have no idea of the club's tactical identity. They have no, experience playing at this level. So they can throw in warm bodies, but they won't be much more than that at this point. So hopefully now they get some time leading into this Edmonton match to, train, which is something they haven't done because they've been traveling so much of late, and maybe get some of these younger guys integrated.
Yeah, you mentioned it. They're just warm bodies filling spots on the bench, aren't they, at that point, really? I mean, they flew home Thursday from Vancouver, only had one kind of training day before they were able to get into that game. Let's go back to York Lions Stadium and hear the thoughts of Martin Nash.
Yeah, I don't have the ability to right now. I just don't have enough players. So it is what it is. I have 11 fit field players. So it's hard to do too much. Guys will just have to keep playing over and over again. And I had a player come in today off the bench that I met this morning. So, and I have it's tough, right? Because you can't change a game, and it's hard to give guys a reprieve because just don't have the bodies. So it's I'm happy with the effort the guys put forward. But as I say, 4 games in 12 days with travel, it's a bus trip and a trip out West Coast. I think it might have been one game too many, and I'm just fortunate, touch wood, that everyone got through the game. So we got 4 days till our next game. So we got to try and freshen them up somehow and get them ready for Friday.
Important to know that some strength in depth is coming, right, Charlie? Ronan Kraft's coming. Tas Modakutus, I'll get it right in a second, is coming. That will be the last time anyone messes that one up, or certainly not me again.
No.
But they still can't play in Edmonton. They go to Edmonton, Charlie, next. And that is a game, I suppose, if you're York, as you used earlier, that's not almost as close to a must-win for them to try and climb out of this mess at the moment.
Yeah, but it's going to be a tough one because it's still, again, not a full week's turnaround, right? They play on the Sunday and they have to go to Edmonton on the Friday, which is tough. Again, we don't like excuses, but at the end of the day, when you're Martin Nash and you're trailing in a game with, say, 15 minutes left, and you look at your bench and you see that there's literally not a single, if you want to say, senior player available on it, and the guys that are on the pitch are being asked to do probably more than they're really capable of with their fitness as well, having played so many games, it's going to be very, very difficult for them in this Edmonton game against an Edmonton team that has been playing quite well in some of the last few games. They beat Ottawa, and they obviously put in a good shift at the end, especially in the second half against Cavalry. But again, this York team is quite resilient, and they have been all year. They'll be wounded after that game against Valour. You don't like to lose like that. So I think you'll hope that maybe there's a little bit, maybe you hope to get at Edmonton early, right, and then maybe get yourselves in front early so you don't have to be just still mashing the gas pedal in the 85th, 90th minute, and maybe you get some time. But again, as you mentioned, Christian, after this Edmonton game, it gets a little bit easier because it looks like Krat and Tas will be available for that Friday game against Forge when the transfer window opens, and I think that'll be massive. We've seen Ronan Krat in training, and he looks really good, so that'll be exciting. So again, there will be more positive things to come for this club.
Yeah, certainly. Let's switch attention to Valour. Mitchell, Andrew Jean-Baptiste, just the 3rd game I think he's played under Phil Dos Santos. Obviously had a significant knee injury last year, didn't play at all, and then obviously his 3rd appearance this season was immense. And what impressed you the most having him back in the lineup for Valour?
Yeah, what a difference he makes for that team. And I think one of the big things from him was just the intensity overall that he brought. I mean, he was pretty much all action. He played a big role in their opening goal where Ferrari's breaking down the pitch. He makes a big tackle to win the ball back, and they're able to turn that into a goal. He defended very well, as you would expect from him, and the partnership between him and Rocco Romeo is excellent. I think that they really bring a nice balance to each other. So I was this close to making him my man of the match. I know Sean Rea kind of nicked it at the end with his goal, but he was excellent, and having him back just provides some stability in the back that I think Valour really need right now.
No, yeah, that's definitely, it's been absolutely fantastic. Let's go back to York Lions Stadium and get reaction. Here's Andrew Jean-Baptiste.
I mean, we look to do this every game. You know, if you can get more faster and more sequence of passes and movements to move the lines of the opposing team, you know, it creates spaces and, you know, it creates opportunities, which, you know, you saw in the first half where it was some of our best ball movement led to some of our greatest chances. And, you know, we wish we had capitalized them earlier in the game, because we could have probably put this away in the first half and then have to go into the second half with a different tactic. But, you know, that's one of the things our team is quite good at with the quality of players that we have is, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say we're like tiki-taka guys or anything, but this is what we look to do. We look to play because that's the quality of the players that we have.
It's just so great to have him back. So great to have him back playing consistently. We're all winners in this Canadian Premier League when we get to watch him play. And Mitchell was a winner yesterday. Again, it's watch him live. Great job as always, Mitchell, on the piece. Watch readers analysis again at CanPL.ca. And as usual, Mitchell, all over lots of features for us this week. Chat next week. Thanks again, Mitchell.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah, great win by Valour. And we'll continue that discussion as we bring on their head coach now, Phil DeSantos, live, joining Christian and Charlie here on the newsroom. Phil, great to see you. I know you're just off the training pitch, so thanks for spending some time with us. I suppose
my pleasure, guys.
Yeah, I suppose it's always easier on a Monday after a victory, no?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. We're just talking about Andrew there, so let's start there. I think you've done 21 CPL games now as a coach for this club, but he's only played in 3 of them. How great is it to have him back playing consistently in back-to-back games for you?
It's good. It's very good. We're happy to see that it was important for him to go with the national team and show that he was fit and ready to go for a couple games and get game rhythm. It also gives us confidence in his ability to step in and be ready for 90 minutes. So, of course, you said it. He's an important piece of this team. And when we pencil our squad at the beginning of the season, it was always with AJB ready to go and fit to go. So he's a part of our team. I always say it's the sum of the parts, but he's an important piece. He brings leadership, he brings quality, not only on in the defensive side, but he also has an ability to help the team in the build-up phase, and he's so composed on the ball. So it's great to have him back, and we're happy that we could have him for a stretch now, and hopefully, you know, the problems and the physical problems are behind now.
Yeah, hopefully, because certainly is one of the best defenders in the league, and we love to watch good players play football in the CPL. So maybe just zeroing in on this game yesterday, obviously, as we've spoken about, the first game of kind of a stretch where you have a lot of road games in Ontario and things like that. This is a big moment for you guys, right? To stay in that fight. Obviously, there are other teams kind of putting some space between themselves at the top of the table. How big a moment was it for you guys to put those points in the bank, especially at the start of a difficult stretch?
Very, very important. I think I had mentioned it to Mitchell how important it was to come now on the road and be able to get points, and not only a draw, because, you know, at this stage you need to connect wins. And when you go 3 home games and there's 9 points to be played and you just make 1 point, you know you're gonna need to compensate somewhere. And knowing you're coming to York, which is right now was a bit of a wounded animal, not only because of their situation with the players that they have missing, but also the fact that they also need 3 points, and we knew it would be a very difficult game. And we know how difficult it is to go to Hamilton and get something there. So we were aware of the challenge, but the team has responded. I said this, we haven't had back-to-back losses, so we were able to always bounce back after a bad result, either get a point and grind even in difficult moments. So we were confident, but of course it feels good when you're able to get that, because it gives us the hope that now we could go and grab something in Hamilton and make it a very good road trip for us, leading to a home game against Halifax.
Yeah, that game.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, just the good thing about the CPL is you're still playing direct competitors 2 to 3 times, so the destiny is still in your hands for now. You have to see it like that. So yeah, we're it takes a bit of pressure off our shoulders for sure.
That game on Wednesday night at Tim Hortons Field, live on One Soccer at 7:00. You used the word connect there, Phil. I want to ask you about your team and connections from back to front. So when I watch your team, and tell me if this is fair, sometimes I think your back six, I'll call them a six, are one of the best back sixes in the league. And then sometimes I think your front four are so explosive and one of the best front fours in the league. And then when you're at the best, I think you connect the two together. Is that fair when we see them all playing as 11?
Yeah, I look at our team and I there's not one game that I said, you know what, we weren't good, or we were outclassed or outplayed. Yes, of course, as coaches, we're very demanding, and my son was telling me yesterday, how come you're always upset that even when you're winning? And I don't know, he sees my face on TV, and that's probably what he thinks. We're demanding, and we always want more. And I feel there's games that we didn't play well, but we weren't outclassed by the opposition. What I told our guys during this last 10 days, we have to eliminate mistakes, individual mistakes that have cost us a few points and more points than we would like to. And I think that when we're able to play a game where we limit mistakes in critical times of the game, we'll always have a chance to win. We all know the qualities that we have in the roster, and we just need to be consistent and find that consistency, because when we do that and the team plays together and the lines are connected and there's not a lot of space for the opposition, we know that we could be a good team and a dangerous team.
The consistency one is interesting to me because, you know, we've seen this Valour team this year. On some days they go to Ottawa and they score 6 goals, and on some days they host Ottawa and they don't score any goals.
Yeah.
Phil, just as a coach, what can you maybe do or work on with these players to make sure that you're getting more of those games where you're at your top? Is it just maybe getting a taste of winning games and they know what works for them and they can kind of carry on that momentum?
Yeah, it's hard to explain, right? It's the Ottawa game has become a reference for many people when they talk about our team. I think that when you look at the Ottawa game, there's a lot of things that went our way in that game. And it was a very difficult game for Ottawa individually. And so, yes, there's a lot of things we take from that game, but it's not the norm. I don't think that we could look at it and say this is I think that it was a combination of factors. For me as a coach, I look at consistency and the way we're gonna play collectively, and be cohesive defensively and be able to exploit the opposition when we are on the ball. We play teams that have been very different in the way they've approached their game against us. I said this multiple times. We need to find ways to play against teams that are closed and don't open up much space. It seems like on the road, we get teams coming a little bit more at us, and it allows us to play in the strength of the front four that you mentioned. And there are the players that like to play in space and with open space. And when we're at home and we have to take the initiative a bit more, we look at the game against Ottawa, we sat a bit more and allowed us to have the ball strategically. And same thing with Edmonton. We just struggled a bit more, and we need to find ways to be better on the ball in those moments, to have better movement on and off the ball as well, and to capitalize on the half chances that we get. Like yesterday, the first half, I feel we were playing against a team who, because of the fact they had played Wednesday, it felt like they weren't sustaining as much pressure. They were okay with letting us have the ball and have our center backs have the ball. And I started for a while there to see a replay of some of the home games where you have half chances, you're getting in good spots, but not being able to create enough, to get enough shots on goal. So the best thing for that is to score and to get the first goal. So the opposition now is forced to open up and allow us to play in our strengths. And we were able to do that yesterday. And that changes everything for us. So the key here is to be consistent in finding that goal and not allow the opposition to play in their strengths when they can, and that's the way to go about it.
I guess this Phil DeSantos, head coach of Valour. Phil, how much are you enjoying this? I know when we had you on your show last year, and you said you were ready for that first gig and stepping up to the next one. How much have you enjoyed the Canadian Premier League so far?
A lot. I love it. One, I think that there's so much opportunity here. There's so much chance to grow, and it's extremely competitive. Every game's a game. You're going in, and you never know. You have a chance to beat everyone. Everyone has a chance to win, and I think that makes it exciting for the league. I think that you coach a mix of players that are have a lot to learn. They're in their very first professional years, and then you have some characters that have been in the game, so that makes it challenging in a way that you can't deal with everyone the same way. You need to challenge yourself on how to push the different buttons in the different players, and I think that makes it fun for a coach. You work in structures that are challenging. You don't have all the perks and bells and whistles of a lot of the leagues, and I just take the reference of Major League where sometimes you're just looking at the room and saying, what are all these people doing? Like, there's work for everyone here. So much stuff. And now,
well, your brother has to coach. Your brother has to coach. Some world-class stars now, like Gareth Bale and Chiellini and these guys.
Absolutely, it's a good one, right? Guys, I think I've known that one for about 10 days. So
nice.
But I do a good job keeping it quiet. So it just keeps things challenging. You're just stretch and challenge, and I think that makes it fun for everyone.
Fantastic
Absolutely.
stuff. Great stuff,
Right.
Phil.
Yeah.
This has been brilliant, man. Listen, as I think you've got a lunch to go to, but is there like a big birthday cake down there for Siwa? He's 21 today, isn't he?
You know what? There's a rule. There's a rule. You need to bring something. You need to bring a cake or something. And I don't know. There's someone who had the idea of bringing donuts from Tim Hortons.
Okay.
And now it looks like everyone does it. I have to have a talk with the guys because they need to up their standards, man. They need
better than that.
Nothing against that. I don't want to. The brand is the brand. I love to stop by Tim Hortons once in a while. But it's a birthday cake, so
it's a birthday cake. The only fill of Tim Hortons you're getting this week is the stadium on Wednesday, mate. That's all you need to be doing.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Listen, go get one of your assistants or somebody to go get a birthday cake for the big man in net, because he's been pretty good for you this year, right?
He's been good. Yeah, he's been good. It's a great group, guys, that we have downstairs. So
awesome.
It's better when you win a game. You could breathe a bit more and enjoy each other's company a bit more.
That's certainly the case. We would certainly enjoy your company in the league. It's great to watch your team flying again and playing well. And we'll see you on Wednesday in Tim Hortons Field. Thanks again for this.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. You too. Phil DeSantos, who's obviously after the victory at York. In good spirits, Charlie. Good to see.
Yeah, as you should be. It's a good weekend for them. I know a weekend that could have been a difficult one for them, but Phil DeSantos is always a pleasure to talk to, especially after a win, though.
Yeah, it's a great guy. All right, let's do a substitute board and take out Phil and bring in AGR. Alex, great to see you. Good morning. You had another great banger of a game this weekend as we roll the highlights as Cavalry continued their winning run. Unbeaten now in 8, 7 wins out of that. And I think the first time in club history, they've actually got 22 points from a stretch that could be from 24. So Cavalry are in massive form, and they went out there and didn't play great. I think Tommy Wilden Jr. said that they basically were in third gear for most of the game, but they were able to get the win and get the victory over Edmonton again.
Yeah, it was another good El Clasico matchup. I mean, it was going to be interesting to see how Edmonton face this red-hot Cavalry side. They're the team to beat right now in CPL action. It was a great first 25 minutes. Both teams were trading blows. I mean, Gabby Bitar hit the crossbar on a shot that, had it just been an inch or two lower, could have been another goal of the season candidate. Funnily enough, he connected on one of those later on in the game. But it was just great tempo from Cavalry, the way they attack and just come at you in waves. It's, the Cavs of 2019, but it's almost like they found a new gear on top of that. They've got this, way about playing in midfield, the back four. Of course, Cavalry's known for their back three, but ever since this switch to a back four, that's given them an extra body elsewhere on the pitch. So it's just, they're so fluid. They're fun to watch. They get men forward in an instant. So they're a tough team to beat right now. Unfortunately, Edmonton, they put up a good effort at the start, and then once they got this goal back, even late on, they made a push. But unfortunately, not many teams are going to Spruce Meadows and winning these days. I mean, there's teams far ahead of Edmonton in the standings who are struggling with that. So unfortunately, the streak lives to another day in terms of 14 games without a win in El Clasico for Edmonton, but it was a solid game otherwise.
Yeah, it certainly was. Cavalry are just red hot right now, and this man who's scoring the penalty on screen right now, Arabin Pepple, maybe the most red hot of all of them, right? Just I think he's I think the second CPL player to do 4 goals in 4 games. It's 5 for him with that penalty, but hasn't been done since Tristan Borges did it in 2019 with also his first 4 professional goals, which is interesting. But Alex, you've watched a few of these Cavalry games. What stands out to you about this player in particular?
Thing is with Pepple, you have to remind yourself he's only 19, because I mean he's burst onto the scene for a few years now. He's very just physically imposing on the pitch. Of course, you notice that, but you can tell immediately what Europe did to him. Those trials, I think, with Sheffield, Leicester, and then that stint with Getafe. He's added polish, he's added shine, to his game. I was always surprised to. Of course, you expect him leading the line. They kind of thrust him into a lone frontman role, but he was dropping deep. There was one assist to Sergio Camargo that had Camargo scored, it would have been one of the nicer assists we'd seen, and it was from a striker. The way that Pepple just kind of looped it over the back line to Camargo, and he's dropping deep. He's taking touches. He's using his size in the sense that he's going to back down defenders, but I just love the way that he's interpreting the game right now and finding those soft pockets that you need to be a striker. I mean, just look at his first goal. I know, Pepple's probably sitting there thinking like, man, that was an ugly goal. But I look at the run beforehand, how he kind of cut in and then cut out. It was like one of those Chicharito runs where you just find space for yourself. You get your shot off and then, okay, maybe it bounces off his knee. But the space he created beforehand was the reason that he scored. So I'm just loving the little growth that he's showing in his game. Because for a 19-year-old striker, I mean, there's 24, 25-year-old strikers I watch that are physically there. They're fast. And they still don't read the game 100%. And of course, he's not there yet, but I just love the growth already for such a young striker, which shows that he has a very bright future.
Yeah, that's a great point. A great point. I thought the same doing the game for One Soccer. His movement is sensational. I love the Chicharito comp because that's exactly the kind of thing he would do. He is the man of the moment right now in the Canadian Premier League. Let's go back to Spruce Meadows and hear from his reaction after the game.
Yeah, I think right now everyone's just pretty confident. Obviously, we know what we have within the group. Even we're missing some key players. We're missing Meyer, Bevan, Joe Mason, who are huge parts of our team. But we know that the next person's always going to step up. So that just keeps us confident. We trust in our coach. We trust in our abilities. And again, we just take it one game at a time. So now we're already forgetting about this and we're moving on to Pacific. And hopefully we can keep it going.
Pepple mentions 2 things there. First of all, he mentions the depth, which we're going to get into in a second with AGR. And he also mentions his coach. His reaction of the coach himself, Tommy Wheldon Jr.
Consistency. I think it's just one of those things that we enjoy these battles. The El Clasico, the fact that the fans have put a trophy on it, I think is important. We just, I think we've just got the edge on them and kept going. And it becomes psychological. So I'd love to keep that run going for as long as I'm at the helm.
I don't think he's going anywhere pretty soon. The strength and depth is there, though, AGR. No, I mean, they took Adekubi out. Simmons came in, absolutely no problem. I mean, Adekubi made the goal, but did get pressed a couple of times in the game as well to lose possession. As they mentioned, no Ed, no Mason, no Bevan. It doesn't matter kind of thing who's out in this team. They just continue to keep rolling, and probably the strongest depth team in the league at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they have depth. They have quality depth. They rotate their squad. I mean, you just see it at all positions. I mean, up front, the fact that if you're Tommy Wheldon Jr., you're at training and you say, okay, strikers come here, and then Pepple comes over, Joe Mason comes over, Meyer Bevan comes over. That's a pretty fearsome trio. I mean, I'd love to see them all find a way to get him on the field, but it might be a bit difficult. So he's got depth there. I mean, another guy, I was just thrown off because it's like you almost forget some of the depth they have. It was 3-1, and then the camera cuts to Tommy Wheldon Jr. just calling Ali Musi over. Oh yeah, Ali Musi was on fire just weeks ago, and he's still a great player. And you think about how they just sold Victor Laturi, obviously over to Scotland with Ross County. the depth they have despite all of those moves, just at all positions. You see in midfield, they can roll through the names week in, week out with Elijah Kugby. You add in all those pieces. You look out wide. Even despite losing Fraser Aird, lots of talent in the flanks. Of course, Escalante continues to be consistent. Ben Fisk, a guy we keep forgetting about, who's just continues to look a big part of this Cavalry team. You look at the back, how Karifa Yao is suspended. You got the Trafford brothers can slot in. You got the Klomp brothers as well. I mean, the depth at all positions is just remarkable, and it feels like there's no reason why they can't keep this run at the top of the table. They don't have any Canadian Championship distractions. You don't have any mid-season trips down to Jamaica and CONCACAF League. Their sole focus is the league. They're deep. They're going to roll through the games. I mean, maybe this 8-game streak, it could be even longer than that. It's right based on their depth.
Yeah. I don't think any team in the CPL has the kind of difference makers that can come into a game late that Cavalry does at the moment. And it's partly, I guess, a factor of other teams just not having those guys healthy. But when you look at Cavalry and their ability to bring attacking players into games, they're rarely chasing a game at that point in the late stages in the last 20, 30 minutes. But if they did find themselves in that position, I would probably fancy them to be able to at least find a few chances, right? They go to Pacific for their next game. That's a massive one. And I think Cavalry will maybe see that. Last time they played Pacific at home, that was kind of a statement from them with Pacific riding so high at that time. But maybe this one is as well for Cavalry to be like, nah, it's our turn. We're the top team in the league at the moment, and you guys can continue to slide. So that's probably one that they're circling as well, right?
Yeah, they're not going to want to lose that momentum, are they? There's no doubt about that. Like, they want to keep this going, and as you said, like that's a great team that's just going to keep them down. They're saying Pacific's hurt right now. We want to keep pushing them down. They don't want to get them anywhere near that. By the way, AGR will be on that game as well, and we'll talk about that next week. Before we get Benedict back in for Canadian women's national team chat, I do want to ask you about FC Edmonton. Before we get your take on them, let's go back to Spruce Meadows and hear from their head coach, Alan Koch.
No, I don't think the atmosphere here is intimidating at all, to be honest. It's an awesome atmosphere, though. It's one of the best environments to come play in the league. So kudos to Cavalry and obviously the Calgary soccer fans, because it is a nice place to come play. But it's not intimidating in any shape or form. It's not like we're playing in front of 70,000 fans, obviously. But Cavalry do a good job on and off the pitch. And I've said this to Tommy off the game. I congratulated him. I congratulate their club. There are big expectations here. I've been in places where I have big expectations and you're set up for success. It's not easy to achieve that success, and Cavalry are now on a fantastic roll. So obviously pleasing from them. We're on the opposite side. We're not set up for success. We're going into every game where we have to fight, we have to battle, and we have to get every little detail right. Because we're very, very inexperienced. I've said this a lot. We have a lot of young first-year pros. They're trying to learn how to play professional football. And in the game today, we'll go critically reflect. There were moments where our young players had difficult moments. And that's why we lose the game. Obviously, Cavalry came and executed their game plan. But we didn't execute our game plan to perfection. And for us to give ourselves a chance to get a point or get 3 points, we have to do exactly what we need to do to get something over the line.
Interesting. We talked to him actually after the game as well on One Soccer, AGR, and he seemed quite despondent after the game. But I thought they played well. Again, they went down 2-0 in the first half, much like the CanChamp game where they played well in the second half as well. And I suppose from a coach, he would not want them to go down 2-0, and he wants his team to play better when they're drawing a game rather than I suppose it's easier to play when you're losing, right? But overall, what impressed you about their attack? Because I mean, Batar as well, but they created a number of chances in that second half where they could have got goals back and maybe had a penalty against them that probably wasn't one.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they had, flashes in the attack all game. I mean, those first 25 minutes as well, I was surprised because I'm used to, seeing this Edmonton team. They're solid, but they played with this tempo in the first 25 minutes away from home that we're not used to seeing. They were pressing, they were causing errors from Cavalry. They were willing to take the ball and drive it forward. And we saw that also late on, the way they were just attacking the wide channels and crossing it in. I mean, CJ Smith probably has a shot that he'd want back on maybe on another day. He puts that in the back of the net. There are a few others. I mean, I thought, if anything, for them, what hurt them was just the execution in those moments. I think of just when it was 0-0, when it was 1-0, there were moments where, okay, you those are goals you should even when it was 2-1 before the penalty, there's just moments where you want to put some of those away to put the pressure on Cavalry. But ultimately, it was just that, I think that 5-minute period where you went down 2-0 from there is just a mountain that against the Cavalry, you're never going to climb, especially in this form. Maybe against another team, you can get one back, get two back, make something of it. But Cavalry isn't going to give away a 2-0 lead at Spruce Meadows. And for Edmonton, that hurts because they were playing so well. You allow in a goal off Peppel's knee off of, when it looks the whole play, it was that soft foul. Maybe Luke Singh doesn't want to give on his day looking back. That's kind of the inexperience factor showing for a young defender like him who's still getting reps. You don't want to give up cheap free kicks against good teams. You look at the own goal as well, where they just kind of switched off. You mentioned on the broadcast, Cage, they switched off at a bad time. You can't be switching off in those moments. And ultimately, I think that's probably what frustrates Alan, having talked to him a few times now after these games. It's just his team will play so well for 80 minutes, and then they'll just have these moments of, just why did they do this or why did they do that? And against Ottawa, they finally put it all together and got that win. And then just to kind of revert to old habits probably frustrates him as a coach, knowing how he's wired. So I guess, understand to that, because he's the guy who, of course, he'll notice the 5 minutes over the 85. He knows his teams, and he thinks his team can be a 90-minute team. He's seen his team be a 90-minute team. So it obviously has to frustrate him to see them make mistakes like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well said and great piece written. Before I let you go, Alex, I want to ask you this. We're going to just move to Canada Soccer Chat. Canada under-20s is done. They got beat by Guatemala in a penalty shootout. Heartbreak fashion, by the way. For those who didn't see it, conceded 119th minute equalizer after Cam Abibula put the team up with a penalty of his own in the 100th minute. It goes to penalties, and then unfortunately, Kwasi Poku's on the wrong end of a penalty shootout again. On the wrong end of another miss again. I was kind of watching this while live, getting ready to go on One Soccer. I know the other guys were there, but I know you're all over this as well. And in fact, I think you've watched about 25 games this week in soccer this week, AGR. So thanks for fitting it all in. But what did you think of Canada in this game, and how disappointing is it to have it such a journey just end so prematurely?
I think it was just kind of emblematic of the tournament that they had. I mean, there were flashes, there were moments, but at the end of the day, they just couldn't find a way to get going. They couldn't find a way to break down low blocks. They just couldn't find a way to take the talent they had and make most use of it on the field. And I think that's going to be the most frustrating thing. I mean, I will still, because obviously when you see a result like this, the pitchforks come out, the alarmist takes come out, and some of them are certainly deserved. I think we as a country, we've seen all the success of the men's and the women's. There's just the reality that at the youth level, we're not doing things good enough, especially on the men's side. We're getting left behind, and key players are missing out on wonderful opportunities to go play at World Cups and play in Olympics like that. And it's a harsh reality that it needs to be better, but things are getting better in the sense that that's a talented team that got sent down to Honduras. And I think that's what's most frustrating, because in years past, they just weren't good teams. It was just kind of a bleh. They'd play 4 games, they get knocked out in the group stages, then they'd go home. Whereas this team, it had talent. You could see in flashes. I see Lowell Wright powering through the U.S. defense for a goal. I see, some of these other players having such great moments in games, but ultimately the team just didn't come together. And what's the reason for that? Is it, do they need more camps together? Do they need more coaching? Do they need just more overall investment in the program? I think the answer lies somewhere in all of those three. But ultimately, it was just a frustrating end to what could have been a good tournament. But I just think, obviously, it shows that so much more work needs to be done to get the most out of it. And growing signs are there. Again, the CPL, what they were able to do in terms of getting these players. I mean, it's not a coincidence. Guys like Lowell Wright, Habibullah, Kwasi Poku, all in games, they were able to have such good flashes. You can tell what being in a pro environment means to them. And in 3-4 years, when the next cycle comes, it's going to be even better. But ultimately, it shows where the cracks kind of are right now in the youth program.
Yeah, very, very well covered, no doubt about it. Disappointing, but as you said, hopefully some learning moments from this, and get our young players back in the Canadian Premier League and continue to shine. AGR, continue to shine for us. Thanks, my man. Enjoy the game on Thursday. We'll chat with you next week.
Sounds good, guys. See ya.
Appreciate you as well. Alex, bringing Benedict, who's been patiently waiting around since he's
back.
He's back. He was, he was a starter for us and then we subbed him out, and then somehow we found a way to get him back on the pitch. We've used force majeure, I suppose, to get Benedict back. But Benedict, you were also watching many games around the world this weekend, including you were at BMO Field for the Canadian women's national team game on Sunday against the Korea Republic, who drew 0-0 in the end. You covered this and summarized it brilliantly on CanPL.ca for us. But in the end, watching it live, was it just one of those days that maybe Canada just couldn't score?
Yeah, I think it was just a sort of classic Canadian women's national team performance, right? Like they're such a dominant team defensively, but they just can't find anything in attack. Left frustrated by an organized Korean team who sometimes had as many as 7 players behind the ball, and Canada just weren't able to break that down, and weren't able to the front three of Leon, Becky, and Heidema, they just weren't able to link it together sometimes, and couldn't find that elusive goal.
Canadian women's national team got frustrated and couldn't score. Seems like it's a common thing that we've been saying in some of the past friendlies that they've played, and even, I mean, realistically, even at the Olympics, they didn't score a lot from open play. Benedict, you obviously watch this team a lot. You've I think covered all of their games for us in the last few months. What do you think? What do you think that is? Like, do you think that there's just something not quite there in the final third? Are these maybe different combinations they're trying up front, maybe not clicking? What do you think's going on?
I think there's still a little bit of a reliance on Christine Sinclair, and I think that maybe shouldn't be an excuse anymore. I know
No.
She's obviously a fantastic player, and she obviously is one of the best players ever on the women's game for a reason. But I think Canada maybe sometimes rely on her when she's on the pitch. She's kind of the player who gets the ball every time, and when she's not on the pitch, I don't know if other players who step into that role, like in this game was Heidema, we've seen Chloe Lacasse play in that role as well. I don't know if maybe they are used to being that sort of focal point, I guess, of the attack, and in this game it was a lot of Janine Becky on the right wing, and she was playing in crosses, and a lot of the ball was going towards the side, but they just couldn't get it centrally, and they weren't able to get many shots on target in this game, except for I think 3 of the 4 shots on target were in the last 30 seconds of the game.
I have some thoughts on it too. Before I give them, here are our thoughts back at BMO Field of Janine Becky.
I would just echo what Bev said. I think it's just a matter of us all coming together again. We have a short amount of time in these windows that we can prepare, and Bev had to make selections, so there was minimal prep for this game, but I think considering we executed a game plan that we wanted to, we got to press in different shape. We experienced a lot of what we'll experience coming up against teams in CONCACAF. So again, I would also say credit to Korea. They're a very organized defensive team, and a lot of things we can go towards. I think a lot of things we can look at and say that's an improvement from previous years. And I think we have a lot of talent on the field, from top to bottom. Even players that didn't get on the pitch are exciting players. So I would also say I'm not concerned. I think there's a lot of positives to take forward.
It is international football, right? I mean, anytime an international football group comes together after they've not played for a while, we can't not just imagine anybody just going to start going and chemistry is going to flow. And when they've come from the club games, it just happens all over the world, women's game and men's game, right? So one thing I would say is that I do think I'm pretty consistent in this, but what do they need to do in midfield to get a little bit more penetration? I mean, I like Julia Grosso because I think she's very, very forward-thinking and direct. That's just an example. The team, Bev Priestman certainly knows the team way better than I do, but Bennett, you know the team really well too. What do you think about trying to maybe bring in a little bit more thrust, and whether that is personnel or some more tactics from midfield?
Yeah, it's interesting. They played this sort of 4-3-3 as Bev Priestman usually does, but they had the 2 holding midfielders in Desiree Scott and Quinn with Fleming just in front of them. And I do wonder if maybe it's time they switch that up and maybe have just Quinn or just Scott with like you said, Fleming and Grosso or someone else playing with 2 attacking players or 2 players who are more attack minded than Quinn and Scott who are a lot more stay at home midfielders. Obviously Quinn has that fantastic passing range, but they are more of a defensive player, and Fleming can't do it all by herself. Despite her best efforts, she can't win every game on her own, like she did in Tokyo. But there are definitely a need, I think, for more attacking presence from a deeper position, like in midfield.
And one of your players you definitely looked at also. It's not always about Canada, right? You see star players coming as well with Ji So Yun, obviously for South Korea, Korea Republic. Here is their boss, Colin Bell, on the playmaker.
Yeah. When you have it's a little bit like Christine Sinclair when she's playing, and I mean this obviously in a positive way, that Sinclair can basically do what she wants to do, and she's earned that right because she's an excellent player, world-class player. And the same thing is for us for G. G is an excellent player, so we try to give her a role where she can decide basically herself, but she's always playing for the team, just like Christine plays for the team. And everybody else can then adjust. And I think everybody saw today what an excellent player she is. And when she's picking up the ball in those deep areas, we know that we're going to keep the ball more often than not, which is obviously very important. But she had some really exciting moments going forward. So I think players of that standing, I think that's when the coach has to adapt to the player. And but knowing that G, just like Christine, have a fantastic sporting character. And we know that as a coach, they're going to do everything for the team. So I think her role today was excellent, and she performed very, very well.
Fascinating stuff. Great to see star players playing in Canada. Well, I want to wrap, Benedict, while keeping you here, on what a great weekend it was. I mean, Pacific had an unbelievable crowd on Saturday. Fantastic day on the island. I was fortunate to be there. And then, obviously, in the middle of the Pride Parade, we had 15,000+ people at BMO Field. I know you were there for that, Benedict. What the atmosphere was like. And also, we should add, Pride game in Calgary, where they broke a record attendance. Just magnificent crowd to see Cavalry extend their streak against FC Edmonton as well. But what was BMO like on this day, Benedict?
Yeah, it wasn't the sellout or the biggest crowd, but it was a passionate crowd. The fans who were there were loud, especially of course, whenever something exciting happens, it obviously brings the best out of a crowd. And there's a couple of moments in the game where, someone like Jean Becky, for example, there's one moment where she passed the ball and caught up to herself and went around a player, and that got the most out of the crowd. And I think players like seeing their heroes play in front of them, right? And that's what the national teams allows us to do, and see people, playing in front of people who support Canadian soccer, and that's what it's all about.
Fantastic stuff. And I think the Canadian Championship, talk about big games, the final has been announced as we're live on the air here. We should just touch on that briefly. July 26th, I think, at 10:30, Vancouver Whitecaps against Toronto FC. And I believe, offhand, that's a double header. I think that's the night Pacific are in Jamaica. So I think we'll be getting a pretty special double header there. But I'm just thinking offhand, it might not be right.
I think Pacific might be on a Tuesday, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check that.
Well, it's a double header week, even if I'm wrong.
It's a big week anyway.
It's a big week anyway, yeah. So that's good. That's pretty cool to see. So that's just been announced as well by Canada Soccer. Let's look at the standings as we wrap up here for the Canadian Premier League after a big week. Obviously, again, Cavalry continue to extend their lead. Pacific still in second, but look at the games in hand, the games played column in particular, Ottawa, Forge, even Halifax, starting to believe that points per game, they are certainly at a better rate right now than Pacific. So keep an eye on that for them to continue to move up. And then let's look at the schedule. And it is an action-packed week, no doubt about it. It starts on Wednesday at Tim Hortons Field as Forge take on Valour, extended through to a doubleheader on Thursday in Halifax, which will be fantastic atmosphere. And again, at Pacific, 2 great games, by the way. And then a Canada game on Friday as well. So 4 this week, all building up towards the weekend again. Briefly before I let you go, guys, on Thursday, that doubleheader is pretty special. But also on Wednesday, Kyle Becker 100. Kyle Becker will become the first player in Canadian Premier League history to have 100 appearances for a CPL team. Charlie, that is pretty special and very fitting that it happens to be him.
Yeah, it isn't surprising that he's the first guy, but it feels right. Kyle Becker has played more games for Forge than I think any other CPL team has played games, period. He's very rarely missed games. I think all of the matches he's missed, he's either been suspended or rested before the playoffs or something like that, with very, very few injuries or days off or anything like that. So Kyle Becker is, a foundational player in this league, and especially for that club in Hamilton. So it feels right. It's going to be an important moment, I think, to just recognize him a little bit and give him that credit for being such an important figure in the first 4 years of this league, as he certainly has been.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The first Canadian Premier League centurion of many to come, no doubt about it. My thanks to Charlie, thanks to Benedict, thanks for Nick behind the scenes as usual, to AGR, Mitchell, and of course Phil DeSantos for joining us. If you missed any of the show, you can go back and watch it here on YouTube or listen to it on the download and whatever your podcast preference is. But thank you for joining us and spending some time with us on the Monday. Enjoy the games this week. Doesn't get much better than this. A full slate of games. And if we don't chat before, have a wonderful Canada Day. We'll speak to you soon.
There's been a feast or a famine since its inception, depending on the colour of your jersey. Cavalry Red has ruled the roost. Guitar turning, shooting, what a goal! Oh my word! Tappel strokes it in confidently. Fine penalty from the youngster.
Up pretty well for Daniel. Still with some work to do. Second touch through the legs of Irving, and it's a second for Halifax.
In the box, comes across 3G, and he